Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to Factutainment. We've been trying to do this recording for a very long time, but shit keeps happening, and I'm very sorry for wasting everyone's time. Uh, we decided to. I'm joined by. Well, first off, I'm Zero Yeti. I'm joined by Avery and Bethany.
Hello.
What were you saying, Beth?
Saying don't open a video like that.
At this point, I don't care. Anyway, we decided to watch the pilot of Walking with Dinosaurs because it's kind of neat. There's a couple of creatures on this tier list that are also, there's a couple creatures on this tier list in particular that don't appear anywhere but the pilot. So in order to cover them, I figured we should probably watch the pilot. Interesting tidbits about the pilot itself is that the pilot was originally considered to be lost media because it was never actually like showcased, and it was probably in a vault in like BBC somewhere for a while. And then it was found by a couple really diehard fans of the Walking with Dinosaurs series, and they found it because they contacted one of the people who worked on the Walking with Dinosaurs pilot, and they asked him if he remembered anything about it. And he said he did, and but that's as far as they thought they got. And then he contacted them a bit later with all of the footage he had from the pilot, and it was posted to the Internet Archive for everyone to be able to access. And then BBC took it down because BBC do that, right, Avery?
Yeah, pretty much.
BBC, not
BBC
the best.
hates that.
Yeah, not the best people. But then it got posted to various places like Reddit and YouTube, and so we were able to find it, albeit in two separate parts, and watch it. And then, so the pilot episode is kind of like, it's kind of like a proto version of Cruel Sea, where it's set
Proof
in
of concept.
Yeah, it's set in the Jurassic period of England. Exactly 146,398,431 BC.
Which I don't know why they gave us the very specific number, but they did.
Getting this screenshot to you cost us a great deal of mental effort.
It all started with this single screenshot, which caused OBS to fucking hate us. Anyway, back to talking about the episode as a whole. So, as we mentioned, it's the proof of concept for Walking with Dinosaurs as a whole, but also it's very much like you see what would be Cruel Sea. There's Cryptocleidos, there's Eustreptospondylus, there is Leopleurodon. So, Walking with Dinosaurs pilot. I'll show you some of these beta designs.
There's not really like a whole lot to talk about here. It's more just the completeness that we're here. If anything.
The thing opens with that like T-Rex looking thing, just looking back at the camera. It's like, what the fuck you looking at? Or maybe it was one of these.
Yeah, it was this thing.
I couldn't tell because it was not well animated.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then there's the beta Leopleurodon.
You can tell it's a beta male because it died.
Even though it didn't look too dissimilar to the puppetry in the actual Cruel Sea episode.
Yeah. And here's the Cryptocleidos.
Okay.
It's blue. But yeah, so this overview of the episode is it starts off following the footprints of Eustreptospondylus, and then it kind of shows it walking around, And then, because it's in two parts, I believe there's a segment of the second segment we watched was meant to fit in directly at the beginning. Stripsponus walks around. There is some various pterosaurs called Scaphognathus, which
Very stiff pterosaurs.
yeah, they're flying around, and then the Streptospondylus is apparently on the hunt for prey. When the only land prey it comes across are these Cetiosaurus, which are just
that
you just see the necks.
That doesn't look right.
Yeah, you just see the necks and the heads, and you see them eat a bit, but you don't see any of the body. And that was kind of clever because constructing the model for the body would have probably been prohibitively expensive for something this big.
Especially
they're like garden
for
eels.
Pilot.
Yeah. So it was kind of a clever way to feature a sauropod without spending a bunch of money on featuring a sauropod. And then it goes into the oceans. And you see Cryptocleitus swimming around, catching fish. And then you see a Leopleurodon hunt the Cryptocleitus. And then it cuts to the aftermath of a storm, which they don't show because, again, budget regions. And then there's a Leopleurodon on the beach, die.
Who then gets eaten by the
Streptospondylus, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's like 20 of them. There's a lot of Streptospondylus. Apparently, they did make a full model for the Cetiosaurus, so I just didn't use it.
Seems like a waste, but go off, I guess.
Okay. So I guess we should probably cover the creatures that are featured in the pilot. So we'll start with the Scaphognathus. So this is what it looks like in the episode. If we can get maybe, nope. Again, because it's lost media, that's about what we can get.
Yeah, it's about
straight ass spine.
Here's Scaphognathus. And then here's another kind of render of what they probably looked like. I'll just do Scaphognathus in general. So Scaphognathus is actually known from fairly decent fossils. We have this holotype specimen here, which is kind of everything from the hips up. Well, part of the wing, because the wings were pretty long. Yeah, then we got Scaphognathus. So some notes on Scaphognathus. It was a genus of pterosaur. Lived throughout what is now Europe, particularly around what is now Germany, during the late Jurassic period, 156 to around 150 million years ago. The first known specimen, consisting of the forelimbs, the skull, and the rib cage, and most of the vertebral column, minus the tail, was recovered from the Solnhofen strata near Ischstadt, Germany, by August Goldfuss, who in 1831 mistook the tailless specimen for being a genus of Pterodactylus, or species Pterodactylus, which he described as P. crasterosus, with the scientific name meaning fat snout in Latin. In 1858,
Big Chungus.
In 1858, Johann Wagner referred to the species as Rhamphorhynchus. And Rhamphorhynchus is what in the full episode of Cruel Seas this would be replaced with. After recognizing the fundamental different snout shape, Wagner, after previous field attempts by Leopold Fitzinger and Christoph Gottfried Andreas Gibbel,
your country needs your continent needs to have easier to pronounce names.
He managed to give it the distinct genus in 1861 of Scaphognathus, derived from the Greek meaning scaphe, or boat, meaning boat, and gnathos meaning jaw. So boat jaw. reference to the blunt shape of the lower jaws. In the 20th century, the rhamphorhynchid nature of S. crassirostris was recognized, and the discovery of a second specimen in Mulheim, Germany, who had a long tail that was preserved. A second Scaphognathus specimen was more complete than its predecessor, but only half the size, because it represented a juvenile. Reaching around 2.5 feet, or 0.67 meters in length, with a 3 foot or 0.9 meter wingspan. Scaphognathus was physically very similar to Rhamphorhynchus, albeit with notable cranial differences. Scaphognathus had a proportionally shorter, more robust skull with a blunter tip, and a larger antorbital fenestra. Its teeth were oriented vertically rather than horizontally, and comparisons of the scleral rings found in Scaphognathus in modern birds and reptiles suggest it would have been active during the day, whilst Rhamphorhynchus was more likely active at night. And that's all I have to say about Scaphognathus.
Yeah.
So it seems like some reconstructions give it a crest, but that seems to be fairly speculative. They give it a little bit of a crest in the pilot.
They're kind of meet in the middle, I guess.
I guess the critiques I have are its wings are maybe a bit too short, because its wings are supposed to be longer than its body is.
Its texture is awful.
Its texture is awful. It probably would have been covered in fuzz. It's just referred to as a European pterosaur in the pilot itself. And they're kind of just like background creatures that, like, their biggest contribution is they help eat the dead leopard. Where do I want to get Scaphognathus?
F.
But I was going to say a C or a D just because it's kind of inoffensive.
Okay, I will say it is nowhere near as bad as the quote-unquote Quetzalcoatlus.
This is true.
D.
D? Okay.
They didn't even crop the thing to be where, like, you'd think you'd crop it more to the right where the fucking head is. Not just crop the thing down the middle of the image.
Okay. And then we have the Cetiosaurus.
And this is the only other thing that we haven't previously covered, right?
Yeah. So as previously stated, there's a whole herd of them. So there's like 6 showcased.
But we just see heads and necks.
Just heads and necks. Although there is a full model made.
Yeah, is it fair to critique the full model if it didn't appear in the pilot?
Not really. Okay, so Cetiosaurus, I have a bit more to go off of because it's not just kind of an unknown pterosaur. So Cetiosaurus. So here's the. That's a small skeleton, Cetiosaurus skeleton. You have a really good shot of it. Well, you did, but you cut it the fuck off. Anyway, there's a couple fairly complete skeletons of Cetiosaurus. Oh, here's another one. Cetiosaurus paleoart.
Look how the paleo art always gives everything stripes.
Stripes are fun. Yeah. So you got some Cetiosaurus. So some facts about Cetiosaurus. Cetiosaurus is a large genus of Herbivorous sauropod dinosaur lived throughout what is now Europe during the Middle Jurassic period, 170 to 164 million years ago. Stegosaurus is, with the exception of the tooth genus Cardiodon, the first sauropod ever discovered. And the name was, as well as being the best known sauropod from England. With the first fossils consisting of vertebrae and limb bones being discovered near Chipping Norton in the early 19th century.
Hawkenthorpe.
British place names everywhere.
Who were reported upon by collector John Kingdon in a letter on the 3rd of June 1824 to the Geological Society of London. In 1841, biologist, comparative anatomist, and paleontologist Sir Richard Owen described these specimens as belonging to what he thought was the form of a gigantic crocodile-like sea-dwelling reptile, which he named Cetiosaurus, meaning whale lizard. From the Greek, cetios meaning sea monster and sauros meaning lizard. In 1842, he established two species, Cetiosaurus hyplothicus and Cetiosaurus epiolithicus. The same year, a subsequent publication by Owen named 4 additional species, Cetiosaurus brevis, Cetiosaurus brachyurus, Cetiosaurus medius, and Cetiosaurus longus. Owen had abandoned the 2 earlier names, as shown by the fact their fossils refer to several other new species. In March 1868, workers near Blechington described a sauropod right femur, and between March 1864 and June 1870, Professor John Phillips further investigated the site in a layer dating to the Bathonian, uncovered 3 skeletons and additional bone material. In 1871, based on these, he named 2 species, Cetiosaurus oxenensis and Cetiosaurus glyptonensis.
All right, so we're now up to 8 species of Cetiosaurus.
Because of the earlier description, many species would be named in the genus, eventually 18 species being named. Most of these have now been placed in other genera and are understood to be dubious names based on poor fossil material. This is also true of the original type species, Cetiosaurus metis, and so C. autunensis was officially made the new type species in 2014. Only valid... Go ahead.
It's very much known that Richard Owens was kind of a hack.
Also, it was one of the first dinosaurs, which means it unfortunately became a wastebasket taxon where everyone just kept referring to any sauropod they found as Cetiosaurus.
Yeah.
Same thing with all theropods were Megalosaurus, all hadrosaurs were Iguanodon, all Ankylosaurus were Hylaeosaurus, etc. So there's only 2 species now considered recognized, C. oxenensis and C. glyptonensis. Reaching around 52 feet or 16 meters in length and 24,000 pounds or 11,000 kilograms in weight, Cetiosaurus was a large quadrupedal animal with a moderately long, about the size of its body, neck and impressively long tail. Unlike many sauropods, Cetiosaurus sported 4 arms that were as long as its upper leg, resulting in a forelimb equaling the hind limb of the animal in size. So instead of it being like longer front legs, lower back legs, or longer back legs, lower front legs, they were all the same length. Cetiosaurus is also known for it had a long neck, but in sauropod standards, it was fairly conservative. Because you see some sauropods, let's pull up. Now, Mamenchisaurus is probably the most extreme example I can bring up, but...
Oh, that's a long...
that's tiny.
I suddenly feel very inadequate.
Yeah, Mamenchisaurus, some of these were insane.
It's like a fucking goose!
Yep. But even like if we do something like Patasaurus, for example,
For sure, kill this thing in Monster Hunter. Hold on, what is that white thing there?
they gave
What the
it
fuck?
dewlaps.
What the fuck? This looks like the. I'm pretty sure you kill this thing in Elden Ring. The god skin.
But yeah, Apatosaurus had a longer neck than like Cetosaurus, like comparatively sized. So Cetosaurus, while it had a fairly long neck, it's nowhere near as long as like other sauropods. So in that case, then the depiction of Cetosaurus in the episode is kind of funky because it's like long swan-like necks and no body visible.
And
Yeah,
like their heads are so long and narrow that I can just tell their looks wrong.
I mean, they're kind of especially suffering from thing that we've talked about on multiple occasions now.
Yeah, shrink wrapping, yeah. And the thing is, this isn't that bad if you were doing something like Mamenchisaurus, or where you have the really long swan-like necks, but Cetiosaurus just didn't really have that.
A relatively short, quite thick neck.
It's, I guess, comparatively like. Have you seen like Nene Goose?
What about the whip goose?
So Nene Goose, they're geese. They're in the geese and swan family, but they have comparatively short necks, right?
Mm.
It's like they gave a swan neck to a Nene Goose. Which kind of removes one of the identifying features of the goose in that aspect. So they gave a very long neck to a sauropod that's kind of notable for not really having that long of a neck, comparatively speaking. Which is kind of funny. Anyway, where do we want to rank the
F?
I don't think it deserves an F. To me, if you're going to go on F tier, you really have to fuck up.
Yeah, I think a C or a D is fair.
D.
Yeah. So overall, as a whole, what are our thoughts on the episode?
B.
B?
B.
I mean, I'd probably say a C or a D just because there isn't really much there, but that's just because it's like 8 minutes long.
Okay. I think it was neat to like see how it started.
It started bad.
Well, it started well enough to approve a whole franchise, so C it is. This has been this episode. Bye.
Bye.
No, it hasn't.